Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. Tonight, our guest is Jennifer Atienzo-Fisher. Jennifer, did I pronounce that right?
You got it right.
Great.
Thank you.
We're off to a great start. Well, thanks for being here tonight. Jennifer is with Fort Wayne Community Schools. I've known Jennifer for a number of years, and one of the ways in which I know Jennifer is through her music career. So she's a school marketer by day and a musician by night. Tell us a little bit about that fun aspect of your life. How long have you been doing music, and what's that like?
So I actually became a musician in sixth grade,
Okay.
and that's where my whole story starts, is in sixth grade. It sort of drove me on my entire career path from that point forward. But I have literally been doing music mostly full-time with a full-time job since I was in college. So starting my freshman year, I had a band, and I had a band all the way through college. And then as soon as I graduated, I had a band. And so I have never really known a time where I wasn't professionally working and running music at the same time. They've always been parallel for me.
So you sing lead. Is it fair to call Sugar Shot a country band?
It is a country band, yeah, straight up country.
And you sing lead and have sang lead for multiple bands.
I have, yes.
Any instruments in your past? Do you play any musical instruments?
I do. I actually started off as a drummer. I'm pretty sure my parents regretted that decision as soon as they got me a drum set. But that actually led me to guitar. And so I picked up guitar in college, and that's really where I started music, is playing guitar and singing. And all of a sudden I discovered this passion for it and just kept doing it and never stopped.
Yeah, well, that's great. And I'm envious because I've always wanted to play music and have absolutely no talent for it whatsoever. So
well, I tell people all the time, musicians need people that love music. So it's a good blend.
That's me. I can barely turn on the radio, but I enjoy doing it. Well, thanks for being here. As we've talked about, on this podcast, we really talk about three things. One is your career path, so people can understand the many different ways in which people find themselves to marketing and communication backgrounds. And it's been interesting. I think this is our 8th episode, and
awesome.
Everyone kind of comes into it a different way. So I'm interested in hearing about the connection between music and marketing and other things that led you to what you're doing today. Then I want to hear a little bit about your organization. Obviously, you were through Fort Wayne Community Schools, which is very familiar to a lot of the people who listen to the show, but I want to hear about it from your perspective. And then we talk, especially in today's environment, about the stuff everyone's working on, the challenges, the good stuff, the inspiring stuff, the things that keep you up at night, the things that you celebrate, whatever those are to you. So we'll start with the first question, and that's career path. I think, Jennifer, were you at Manchester College? Then
yes.
Manchester College when you and I met. So I always tell people to start at the beginning, whatever that means to you, and maybe bridge us from music to how you got to Manchester and how you ended up at Fort Wayne Community Schools.
Absolutely. So legitimately, my career path, I started off as a social worker. My undergrad is in social work. As every social worker wants to do, right? You want to save the world, and that's kind of the
So that was
mentality.
The original inspiration.
Yeah, that really was.
Yeah, well, that's pretty good inspiration.
You want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I got into it, and while I loved it, I moved to Fort Wayne and didn't get a job in it. I immediately got a job in human resources, which kind of tied together the social work side of it.
Where were you from originally?
Ohio. So I came over from Ohio, and oh my God, I hate to say it, but like 22 years ago. I've literally been here for 22 years. And when I got here, my first job was getting a job in human resources. And like I said, there was a great tie-in, and I loved what I was doing, never really anticipated any difference in a career chain. But as soon as I kind of got into more of the creative side in human resources, I was doing training and got to do some newsletters. And I thought, I really like this. And kind of how I mentioned music earlier, because I had always had music as this path, I was always looking at ways to market my band. And so I really kind of gravitated towards that very creative, very marketing, promotions driven side of things.
Sure.
And so no matter what job I had, I always had this side of me in music that was promoting my music and promoting what I was doing. And it seemed to come really naturally for me. So by the time I got to Manchester, which was 2003 maybe, I really kind of gravitated towards those very creative things, and was very lucky that I had a boss at the time that recognized it, said, why don't you do some creative stuff, do some marketing for us? And so I really kind of naturally gravitated to it. By the time I left there, I had a really great opportunity to join a company that legitimately started me in human resources, knew what my career path wanted to be, and helped me transition to marketing. And that was Deco. And really what was amazing to me was was number one, them believing in my career path with me. I really knew that it was a passion of mine. I knew just from music and how much I enjoyed the marketing side of it, that it was a good career path for me. I ended up getting my MBA and focused in on marketing. So I kind of created that educational opportunity at the same time I was transitioning my career to marketing. But once I transitioned over to marketing, there was really no looking back. I love what I do. Yeah. It's one of those where every day you get up and you think, gosh, is this really my life? Like I really get to create every single day. And even as a musician, that creative side, it just fulfills your life in a way that you can't ask for anything better than that. And so that's really what marketing has done for me, going from social worker to marketer. Yeah. And it was really my passion in the middle of it that helped me bridge that gap.
Yeah. And so you would have then, in marketing your music career, you sort of grew up with the internet. You know,
yes.
I was just thinking through the same thing for myself, because I started my career in the early 1990s, and this makes me sound like a dinosaur, but it was really pre-commercial internet when I first started working, and it wasn't too long after that the internet started to, be a thing that people had in their home.
Right.
But you being a musician and having to market your band, you had to use the tools, so you gained those skills. So that's, a different facet than a lot of marketers who are just looking at it from the outside looking in.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting too, because I had to kind of learn those things on my own. The schooling obviously was for social work, so there's absolutely no marketing in social work. It's really how do you help people. And so as I kind of learned those skills and learned that I kind of gravitated towards that, that helped me learn coding. It helped me learn how to create flyers. I mean, there were all these things that just being the musician and the creative type, those really kind of cascaded into a career opportunity for me, because I did pick up all those skills along the way. It was sort of that personal desire to be as good as I could as a musician and be as good as I could as a marketer for that, because people showing up helped me as a musician. Those things really kind of cascaded into this amazing opportunity from a career perspective that I could never have said to you when I was a kid that I would ever have a career in marketing. I just never anticipated it. In fact, I thought I would be a teacher. So to end up where I did in my career with this wealth of opportunity just because I was a musician, it really became a blessing in my life. I can't tell you that if music weren't in my life, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And so I always tell people, follow your passion, because your passion will lead you to your career. And that's really what happened for me.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about a name that the listeners might not be as familiar with, and that's Deco. So that's Group Deco.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what that organization is and the work you did there, because sounds like it's a pretty important prerequisite to what you're doing today.
It really was. So just prior to going to Deco, I was working for Greater Fort Wayne Inc., which was previously the Chamber of Commerce, right? And so that was really kind of where I got my toes wet with the whole marketing, because that's kind of what I was doing. But Deco really created the opportunity for me. They're a manufacturing company. When I was hired, I was initially hired as a recruiter, which really kind of has some very similar components to it. When you talk about marketing and recruiting, there's a lot of similarities to those two jobs.
Exactly. A culture and a brand to prospective employees. Yeah.
So I started there and had been really clear from the start. By that point, I knew really where I wanted the direction of my career to go. And so had almost done this career pathing for myself and knew sort of, I need to have this job, and this is going to get me ultimately where I was at. And so I had a really honest conversation with them right at the beginning that said, I'll start here for you, but this is really where I see myself. And if you see me getting there as well, I'd love to work with you. And they hired me and it really helped me do that. And so that bridge really became the opportunity for me. It was the most stressful I think I've ever been. Well, I say that until where I'm at now. But legitimately, I was working two jobs. So as I transitioned and bridged, I was still doing recruiting, but I was also doing marketing at the same time. And so
and doing music on the side.
And doing music on the side, right? So this full life of things that was going on. And then in the middle of that had a child. So why not just add to it, right? But that bridge and that opportunity allowed me to get to where I'm at today. And I am forever grateful to them for seeing that opportunity for me and really allowing me to create that path internal to them. And I would say that's part of their culture. Group Deco really, across their entire history, from Chet Deco on up, has really seen potential in people and allowed them to kind of follow that potential. I mean, they have a number of employees there that have been there for many, many years and done a variety of jobs. And so that really was the bridge for me to go from here's where I was to where I knew I wanted to be. And that bridge was really the opportunity that I needed to get there.
Yeah, that's great. And I think smart employers realize that your people are going to grow either with you or without you.
Right.
And if they listen to those types of desires and help people, stay with the organization and even move past the organization, that's going to lead to lifelong relationships where you're probably much more apt to refer someone to work there,
Absolutely.
to speak well of them now that you're not there.
Right,
so that's
right.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. And I didn't really anticipate leaving. Like I really kind of thought my career was going to stay there for a while. And then the opportunity at Fort Wayne Community Schools kind of presented itself, and it's really hard to say no to an opportunity like that.
Sure. Well, let's bridge to that, because I think most people know and appreciate the great role that Fort Wayne Community Schools plays in our community, and obviously a very large public school system serving a ton of kids and families. So what opportunity was presented to you? How was it presented to you, and why was that attractive to you, and where'd you go from there?
So quite honestly, it was my wife came home and said, I saw on somebody's Facebook page that they're hiring a marketing person. You're going to apply for it. Okay. Well, I didn't even see it, and I wasn't looking for it. So really kind of she drove me to it.
So you were happy with the work you were doing?
Oh, I was super happy. I was really, I had just been promoted and had been there for a year in the role and was just loving the people I worked with and loving the opportunity. But then I kind of dove into what the responsibilities would be and kind of what they were looking for. They were actually already really well along in the interview process. So by the time I applied, they were already on their second round of people.
Oh, wow.
And I think I got the opportunity because I knew somebody who was working there at the time, and that's always a great opportunity, right? And so I applied for it, got the interview, and ultimately got the role. And it just immediately felt like the perfect opportunity. When you think about your career holistically, right? I started as a social worker, I ended up as a marketer. This role really allowed me to pull both of those things together. I mean, when you talk about being in a large urban school district, you do use that social work side of you. And the things that I learned really did help me understand sort of the role that I was going to play in the school system and the things that we ultimately deal with on a daily basis. And so it really became like the perfect role for me because it did bridge both sides of me. I'm still a social worker at heart. I still want to save the world. But that creative side really has to be met. And so it was really the perfect opportunity to really marry those two things together for me. And it's been very rewarding from that perspective.
So Jennifer, what's your title today, and what exactly does that mean? I always tell people my title is meaningless. So I say, this is what my title is, but here's what I actually do. How do you define that? What's your title, and what do you actually do on a day-to-day basis?
Director of Marketing Communications. And on a daily basis, it ranges. For the most part, my responsibility is really promoting the district, helping us message who we are, sometimes dispel some things that people believe about us, obviously, but really helping us tell the story. That's I really call myself a storyteller. That's ultimately what I'm doing is looking at each school, looking at each program, and how can we better tell the story of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And that's really, I think that's what's so rewarding about this is that a lot of people sometimes don't know what happens in an urban school district, and they, especially a large one, it can be very difficult to know exactly what's going on. And so I get the chance to tell that story. And from that perspective, I love what I do. I love every day getting up and going in and telling that story, because there is never going to be not an opportunity that I'm not going to be busy in this job. In fact, I tell my boss all the time, I'm going to retire and still be doing stuff, because there's never going to be a time when there's not a story to tell, because there are such amazing things happening that I could continue to keep myself busy for the rest of my life.
Sure. Well, and in terms of shining a light on that, everything that's happened in the last 7 months, I think if people were thinking, and it's hard not to with everything that's been going on, you realize that public schools play a role well beyond education.
Very much so.
You are daycare, you are food services for families. And if that didn't get hammered home in the last 7 months, I don't know that it ever will. But, you're also talking about a business that has gotten more competitive.
Very much so.
In recent years. So tell me a little bit about how everybody recognizes Fort Wayne Community Schools. Everybody knows, what the schools do to a point, but there's probably a lot of misconceptions out
Very
there.
much
There's
so.
probably gaps in people's knowledge. So how do you define Fort Wayne Community Schools? What is the entity, and what's most important to you in terms of that story?
Sure. I think what's most important for people to know is we value every single child. We know that each child has their own story, their own path, and our educators and our staff are really looking for the best opportunity for those individual children. I think most people sort of look at public schooling as a commodity, and really the way I've looked at it is we really very much see ourselves as integral to the success of Fort Wayne. When you really look down to it, we are impacting the future leaders of Fort Wayne. We're impacting the future leaders of our area. And so what we do now really truly does impact the scope of our city ultimately in the future. And we take that very seriously in the way that we teach kids, in the way that we approach our own employees. It's critical to us to be successful, because if we're not successful, then we don't think those kids are going to be successful, and ultimately that impacts our community. And so we really do view our role as integral in making sure that we are helping students become the best versions of themselves. And I think that's what people don't know. They just think it's about sitting in a seat and memorizing facts. And what we're trying to do is really help to create really good citizens that understand the world around them and know how to impact that world. And so that's where I think that if I could tell a story about what we're doing, it's helping young people become the best versions of who they can potentially be, and then learning how to impact the world around them. I think that's really what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and you know, you're preaching to the choir. I'm a huge believer in education. You know, the thing that was personally transformative to me was higher education, but I wish I had gotten it earlier. And you know, I look at my brother, who was a standout student academically from day one, and he has a different life and a different potential because of that. And I think that what makes a difference is teachers and staff at schools who care. And really, it's as simple as that. But the education piece is just part of it. It's the mentoring. It's really teaching kids leadership skills. It's teaching them social skills. In many ways, it's being sort of a transactional parent to the child. Yeah. So obviously, and we can save this for the challenging, intriguing, whatever you want to call it, projects. But talk to me about the impact of COVID-19 and the pandemic on your world over the past 7 months, because it has to be stressful and challenging and all of those things.
Very much so. From a very high level, just educationally, I think for our entire district, what we discovered is that for many of our students, we really are the lifeline. And that is... I don't make small light of that, because we do understand for many of our students, this is how they're getting fed, and this is how they're getting some things. And that's not all of our students, but we certainly understand that that's some of our students. I think that it has created stress in our employees, because they do worry about the kids. They worry about how they come back to school. I think everyone was really excited that we did come back, and hopefully we can maintain that. We've done well so far. For me personally in marketing, it has created a lot of stress, but a lot of opportunity at the same time. Obviously, when you can't get together in person with people and you can't do things, like a great example of this is we have an in-person showcase that we do every single year that would be in 2 weeks. We obviously can't do that right now, and
and that's really a marketing event for the schools.
Oh, it is. Right? Yes, it's a huge marketing event. It's probably the largest marketing event we will do throughout the year. So not having that obviously created new opportunity that we really had to think outside of the box in terms of, well, how do we talk about our district and how do we share this information with people? And so we actually created a virtual showcase that we're going to be launching in a couple of weeks. And inside of that, we're doing virtual tours of every single school within our district. So from a stress level, 50 schools, 50 videos, that's a lot of work. But from an opportunity perspective, it really allows us to tell a story that we would never be able to tell in an event like a showcase, right? For many of our schools, if they talk to 3 people at the event, they're excited. But here is going to be an opportunity for them to sit down and share their story in a very unique and interesting way. And I can tell you, these are powerful. When I have listened to and watched just how these educators and principals showcase their building and how they talk about their building, I can tell you the level of passion and the level of just love of students and love of their success, it definitely translates on these videos. And I think that's what has really kind of cascaded out of COVID for us, is that while it has been awful, like there's no doubt about it, that it has been awful, but it has created opportunity for both us as a district to examine how we educate. We still believe students learn best in front of a teacher, and that's not going away. But it does allow you to sort of look at different avenues for how do you communicate. And from a marketing perspective, it's definitely opened up that realm for us. We were already doing it. It's just been much more intentional through this process.
Yeah, it's kind of pushed the issue.
It really has.
It's, I was talking to someone the other day about how everyone today, I wouldn't say everyone, but the vast majority of us are way more comfortable in front of a webcam than we were 7 months ago.
You had to get there.
Yeah. So let's talk about competition, because, a lot of people who grew up in a different world might say, well, why does Fort Wayne Community Schools need marketing?
Right.
Don't people just go there, if they live in the district? And the answer, of course, is no.
Right.
Tell us about the competitive environment and how you respond to that.
Sure, absolutely. Especially in Indiana, school choice has obviously created opportunity for parents to make decisions about their students' education.
Yep.
And that is a wonderful thing. Parents should absolutely have the choice of where to send their child, regardless of anything. But it has also created a tremendous amount of competition, which in turn has created a position like mine in a public school system. We do to get that question, why do you need to market yourselves? You're a public entity. People should just be coming to you. And that's not the case anymore. Parents can choose where to send their children, and dollars follow that. And I definitely don't want to put this into a realm of business, but when we have students, it gives us an opportunity to do more programming because we have more funding. And so when we look at being in the state of Indiana, that competition creates both opportunity and challenges to us, because we do have to think about how do we attract students? How do we introduce our story to people that may not have thought about us? How do we keep students from leaving us? And so it does allow us to look at things and get better. I think competition is a great thing because it does allow you to really examine how you do things and if you're on par with everyone else. And I think certainly for Fort Wayne Community Schools, it has created an amazing opportunity for us to be highly competitive. And I think as people start to learn the things that we're doing and the way that we're educating students, I think they're going to learn that we are highly competitive in that market. I think the misnomer is that a public school system is in some way not as good as a private school. And I think that people would be surprised at just how good the education level is at Fort Wayne Community Schools. And so while competition is frustrating and at times makes me want to pull my hair out, it just makes us better at what we do because it forces us into a realm of we have to get our story out there and we have to be competitive because we're fighting for the same students that every other school in the area is fighting for. And so it does force you to really look at where your opportunity lies and how you message and really talk about what you're doing for students. And then really it allows parents to very much take a look at their individual student and make decisions on what's best for their student. And the great thing about being a very large public school system is there's a lot of opportunity in that. So I do think that creates opportunity for us as we tell our story to be highly competitive in the market. And obviously we want people to know who we are. We want people to choose us as their school system, not just for Fort Wayne, but ultimately because we feel like we're a great fit for students. And that's really what we are striving to do is be for students what they need us to be, and that's the best education possible.
So let's talk about when you have the opportunity to promote Fort Wayne Community Schools, the best things about it. And obviously I know it varies from school to school, but what do you say when people say, why Fort Wayne Community Schools and not another option? What rises to the top in your mind? I
think choice is number one. With 50 schools, all with different programming paths, there is a Montessori school within Fort Wayne Community Schools. We have early education for young students. As you get into high school, you can really start to direct your path towards a specific type of career because each high school has a specific thing. So that's really what I point to is that within our school system, there is so much opportunity educationally that you really can match your students' needs and fit with what they're thinking they want to do for the rest of their life. And I don't know that anybody else can say that. I think that choice really sets us apart from the area. I think the other thing, and this really comes down to educationally, how we're approaching education as a whole. We've started doing something called deep learning. We started it about 3 to 4 years ago under Dr. Robinson, and that really has become the overarching education philosophy for the district. We're literally teaching 6 C's, so things like creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, like all of these things that employers are looking
for sure.
We're literally trying to teach those in students as young as 3 and 4 years old.
Yep.
And so we really feel like that educational path does create students who ultimately become good citizens of the world and ultimately understand their role in problem solving and just looking at the world, not just from their lens, but from the lens of everything else that's happening around them. And so I think that educational philosophy really does, again, set us apart. We understand that parents that are sending their students to a religious school are sending them there for a reason.
Sure.
We really feel like this is creating opportunity for students to gain some of that understanding of the world and gain those skills that really develop into a good employee and a good citizen of where we're at. And so that's really where I think those two things are what I find most important about Fort Wayne Community Schools, is that not only do parents have choices within our district, but they are really seeing a student who is very intentionally being taught certain skills that hopefully employers find valuable.
Yeah, well, and really critical to employers. I know that we, even though we're a marketing company, we hire people from a variety of walks of life.
Right.
And what we look for are some of those core skills, some of those C's that you mentioned: good communication skills, good critical thinking, good ability to collaborate.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're on the right track for sure. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, you guys have some great teachers.
We do.
Karen Gilly is someone I've known for a long time, does a great job at Anthus. I've heard students sing her praises unprompted. I know some younger teachers there who are just getting started, who are very passionate about Fort Wayne Community Schools and who said, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
And these are the students I want to work with. So kudos to you for that too, because that's ultimately a big part of the experience, obviously.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think what I love about our educators and our staff is that they're not just looking narrowly at how do they teach kids, but they're looking at the whole student. So not just how do we teach them, but how do we make sure that they're well-being emotionally, and how do we make sure that everything aligns with them being prepared to learn. Our educators are really thinking about those things on a daily basis. And so it's not just sitting a child down in a seat and saying, all right, learn this. It's really, how do we make sure we create the best opportunity for the whole child? And all of our educators really do seem to buy into that and really live that every day. They're not just concerned about, did they pass the test? They're concerned about, are they okay?
Yeah.
Are they learning the material, but are they okay in life? And I think that's what makes our educators so incredibly special, is that they are passionate about what they do, and they really, truly care deeply about our students.
Yeah, well, and from a leadership perspective, obviously you had an icon in education,
Very
Dr.
much so.
Robinson, who you worked with, and a leadership change now, big shoes to fill. So that's a transition for the entire system as well, I'm sure.
It sure is. It sure is. But Dr. Daniel really has been amazing to work with. He sees a vision that I think is very similar to what Dr. Robinson saw for our district, and he's even looking at, how do we even continue down the path of really being a great partner to Fort Wayne, the city of Fort Wayne, and our community?
Yep.
It's not just about us being a school system, but how do we become really good partners to the people around us? And I think that is where you're going to see us heading in the future as a district, is aligning with what our region needs in terms of young people and their skill sets.
Sure.
But making sure that those students are coming out prepared and ready to go for their future.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great. Well, you've alluded to some of this, but I want to dive into stuff that's on your mind in terms of projects, in terms of what's on your to-do list. Obviously, there's a lot to think about and a lot to do, but what rises to the top for you? And this could be the projects you're working on that are most challenging, that are most interesting, the things that, when your head hits the pillow tonight will either keep you up or make you sleep soundly? What's on your mind in terms of big picture stuff?
Obviously, because we are a school system, we have a specific budget, and I'm conscious of that all the time. And so for me personally, it's what skill do I need to very quickly learn to be able to offset something that we would typically outsource. And so I'm kind of constantly looking at those things. Obviously, the video project that we're working on, 50 schools, 50 videos, that's a lot.
Yeah, you probably can't do that with your phone.
No, can't do that with my phone. So we knew some software, and we quickly got up to speed on it. And it really created an opportunity for me personally to learn some skill sets that I didn't have coming into it. But that's kind of what's keeping me up at night right now is getting to that virtual showcase, and how do we tell our story best to people who would be thinking about us. I think ultimately what keeps me up is knowing that COVID had an impact on our enrollment. Those are the things I'm thinking about, because that's not just how do I market, it's how do I help our district gain students back and then gain even more students, because ultimately that is our funding stream. And so that does drive how we are able to do things. And so that does keep me up at night is what can I do from a marketing perspective to share our story and share who the district really is, to help people see us in a way that might prompt them to send their student to us. And so those are the things that really are at top of mind right now that make me really want to do as much as I possibly can, because I want this district to be successful. I want to keep everybody that's working for this district working. And so I take kind of personal responsibility for that, to make sure that whatever I'm doing from a storytelling perspective or a marketing perspective really does allow people to see who we are and what we're trying to do in the community. And so those are the things that really are driving me right now and helping me stay focused, because I want us to be successful in that.
Sure. Well, it's a high sense of urgency when what you're funded by. I mean, obviously the mission is bigger than the bottom line, but there is a bottom line concern that's going to determine the destiny of the district. So, and let's talk a little bit about your team. You mentioned you obviously don't do all of this on your own.
Right.
What's your team structure like, and how do those folks factor into the work that you do?
So on my direct team, there's only two of us. So we have some outside people, not outside, but inside of our own district that we partner with as part of our team. But I have a digital marketing coordinator, so he takes on responsibilities for doing videos with us, website, messaging, social media. Obviously, we have Krista Stockman, who's the PIO for the district, and she's a part of our team without being on our team directly. But then also like the website people in IT, we directly work with them. We obviously outsource. Asher is a great partner for us, obviously. We love working with you guys too. So it really, it's strategically knowing what our capability is internally, and then knowing who the right partners are to have externally as well. And so right now it's a small group. If I can grow it, I'm going to grow it. But just for the time being, it's the two of us, and we work our rear ends off to try and get everything done.
That's a lot for two folks to handle, but it's just a matter of focusing on the priorities.
Right.
So to close us out, there's three quick hit questions that I ask that are sort of reflective of the three things we've talked about. And I'm going to start with career path, and that's fascinating to me, that the twists and turns that your career path took. If you had to boil it down to one piece of advice, let's say you were talking to someone, maybe it's a student at Fort Wayne Community Schools who is intrigued by what you've done and says, I might want to do something like that. What's your one best piece of advice as far as designing a career path, succeeding in a career path, and ultimately figuring out what to do with your life and doing it well?
So there's kind of two things in that. Number one, don't let fear get in your way. I was an incredibly shy person, and had I let my shyness and fear get in my way, I literally would not be in my job, because one moment literally drove my entire life from that point forward, and it was in music. So
do you mind if we talk about that?
No, not at all.
I'm fascinated by the fact, shy person, lead singer of a band.
I know,
so
that's
crazy. How do we overcome that?
So when I was in sixth grade, and I love telling the story, because for the young person who thinks I can't do this, my story starts in sixth grade. Before that, I was so shy. I was the kid that hid behind my mom anytime somebody tried to talk to me. So if you remember in sixth grade, band folks come around and they're like, hey, you could play this instrument, or hey, you could do this. And immediately I was like, oh, I want to play drums. And what ended up happening is the tryouts came and went, and I didn't go try out because I was too afraid. I didn't see anybody like me. There were no girls drumming at the time, and so I just chose not to. I was lucky enough at the time I had a babysitter that had seen me with chopsticks and pots and pans and knew that I loved doing this. And she happened to be in the band in high school and said, look, why don't you just go talk to the band director? And for the longest time, I kept saying, no, I'm not going to do that. Because, again, fear and shyness was very much in my way. Finally, one day, and I don't know what caused me to do this, but I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And I literally walked into the band room, and if you can imagine a 6th grade little kid and this towering big guy, like I literally say he was 12 feet tall because that's what he felt like to me. But he looks down at me and he says, well, what can I do for you? And I said, I want to join the band. And by this point, we're like 2 months out from when the band had actually started. And he said, well, you're a little late. And I kind of explained to him that I was too shy to try out. And he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to drum. And he goes, well, can you drum? I don't know, but I'd like to bang on stuff. So let's try that. And he let me in the band. And that one moment literally changed my life because from that one moment, I gained a ton of confidence. I learned how to perform because I joined marching band and all the bands that you could possibly do as you get into high school. And so that literally that one moment, had it been any different, I would not have the career path that I have because I wouldn't be in music. I wouldn't have learned my love for marketing and that would not have driven me to where I'm at now. And I certainly wouldn't be a lead singer in a band. So.
Well, and it's the power of education.
It is.
So many people we've talked to, and my story is second semester, third semester of college, an instructor tapping me on the shoulder and being, nah, you can do this. Just, saying to me, seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself and give me the opportunity to do it. So, a lot of people have those stories, and I think it's a common thread. Also, a quick digression. Have you seen the 10-year-old girl who did like the head-to-head drumming competition with Dave
my gosh,
Isn't
I have. Yes, it's totally the best. Yeah, totally.
So, sorry, listeners, I just took it down a path.
That's awesome.
It was pretty great. If you haven't seen it, look it up.
Yeah.
So, speaking of taking us down a path, I took you away from your really succinct good answer of, don't be afraid and overcome that fear. Anything you'd add to that?
I would. It's take advantage of opportunity. Literally, I created this career opportunity because I started doing things. I started doing marketing. I started doing some projects. I started picking up projects for other people. And so had I not taken advantage of those opportunities, I wouldn't even have the skill set that allowed me to even get into marketing. So I would tell people, one, don't be afraid to try things. Don't let your shyness and fear get in the way. But don't be afraid to take advantage of those opportunities to grow your skill set, even if you don't feel like you're going to be good at it. I was not an artist. I never would have thought that I would have loved a creative path until music took me down that path and I started doing things. And so really gaining those skills and learning those things on my own. And then the education really helped me, getting my MBA and really kind of having something that said, yes, you have an education in this now. Those things really did help me get to my career path where I'm at now. So I would just encourage people, take advantage of those opportunities, skill up, get the skills that you need to be in the career that you want, but then be very intentional about where you want to be and work towards getting there. Yeah,
and definitely, I mean, one of the things I hear in that I love is in order to learn stuff, you have to do it.
Yeah.
If you want to learn how to be a drummer, play the drums.
Yes.
And be okay with being not so great right out of the gate.
Right,
and eventually you'll get better. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's great advice. So let's say now with Fort Wayne Community Schools, let's say somebody stopped you on the street, said you have a minute, doesn't have to be exactly a minute, but you have a minute to tell me about your organization. What would you say?
I would say that Fort Wayne Community Schools is this amazing partner and nugget in Fort Wayne that is really truly taking its role in educating the future of our city to heart. We are a great opportunity for students to find their own path and really work towards their future. And they're going to find support within our walls, whether it's an educator or a teacher, a coach, it doesn't matter. They're going to find someone who's going to support their efforts to get to where they want to be. And so that's what I tell people. From a working perspective, it's an amazing organization to work for. It's nice to know that your mission is driven by making someone else better.
Yeah.
And so I think from just a mission perspective, it's the right place to be. But just ultimately, it feels good to know you're doing something for something other than yourself.
Yeah, well, and it's a reminder that while the educators are extremely important, there's a team behind them because it is about the whole person.
Right.
So yeah, that's great. Okay, so last short question. if you were talking to someone, whether it's a colleague at Fort Wayne Community Schools, whether it's another marketer, someone who is sort of drifting at this time when there's a lot of opportunity to drift and people are trying to figure stuff out and relearn how to work and relearn how to be successful, what's your best piece of advice for persisting through the time that we're in right now?
Sure. I think literally it is just persistence. I think it's, you have to understand, one, that there is going to be an other side of this. And so you have to prepare yourself for that other side of it. But two, it's recognizing and giving yourself permission to not be okay, right? Sometimes you're not okay during times like this. And there are certainly times when stress can get to you and things can get to you. But it's, again, staying focused in on what your goal is, staying focused in on other people and other things that are needs around you, but knowing that there's another side to this, that we're not going to stay where we're at right now. And for someone who's looking for a new career, looking for something different, it's just knowing that on the other side of where you're at, that opportunity is sitting there waiting for you to go get it. And so it's just taking advantage of that.
Yeah. What's the old Winston Churchill quote that if you're going through hell, keep going?
Keep on going. That's right. There's a song there too.
Yeah. So one last digression. We've digressed quite a bit in a good way. You're a performer, and right now, not much opportunity to do that. Are you able to perform at all with your band?
Yeah.
And how are you doing that?
We literally took a pretty big hiatus. March was our last gig for a long time. We ended up doing one live stream. Loved it, but didn't love it at the same time. I love the interaction of the audience. I love that energy. We did finally get a chance at the beginning of October to start performing again. So this past weekend was my third gig of the month, and I've got one more coming up this weekend. So we are kind of getting back to some sense of normalcy. I do still get questions from people about, do you feel comfortable? Do you think it's safe? I think that restaurants, bars, entertainment venues are doing an amazing job of trying to maintain that safe distance and keep people safe. And for me as a performer, having this back in my life is almost critical to my sanity. I can tell you, for the almost 7 months that we didn't perform, it is gut-wrenching almost, because when you need something as much as music has become for me, not having it in your life almost becomes this massive drain. And so I just discovered, coming back to it again, there was a renewed passion and a renewed love for just being in front of people and connecting with people. I think that's the one thing that I do love about music, is that it connects me to people that I would not otherwise be connected to, and being able to be with people and know that you're contributing to something for them in that moment. And that's really, I think, what's special and what I missed so much. So kind of getting back to some normalcy, obviously with flu season coming up, we're not sure what's going to happen, but it has felt really good just to get back to some sense of being on stage and having a live audience in front of you. Yeah.
So, okay, listeners, if you want to hear Jennifer perform, just look for the name Sugar Shot, and they are coming to a venue near you, hopefully when things get back to normal. And as far as the showcase goes, we're switching back to Fort Wayne Community Schools now. I'm taking you down many paths. As far as the showcase goes, when will that information be available, and where should people look for that information?
Absolutely. November 2nd is when we're launching the whole thing. People will be able to go to our website. It's fortwayneschools.org/showcase, and you'll find all of our schools will be linked on there. Every day we're going to highlight a different school, so that throughout the lottery process, and if you're not familiar, lottery is basically people can fill out a lottery application to go to any school within Fort Wayne Community Schools, whether it's a magnet school or a neighborhood school. And so that process also launches on November 2nd. We will be highlighting different schools and different programs. And so our goal is that people just get a chance to see things that they wouldn't typically get to see under normal circumstances. So we'll be sharing on social media, we'll be sharing on our website, and all of the schools will be also sharing information about what they do and how they do it.
Excellent. So fortwayneschools.org/showcase. Is
correct,
that correct?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, thanks for that, and thanks for the important work that you and everyone at Fort Wayne Community Schools does. It's really the backbone of our community, and really appreciate that. So thanks for everything you do. Thanks for being with us tonight, and thanks to all of you for listening. We'll be back next week with another great guest, and we hope you'll listen in then. See you then.